Hello, everyone. Jerry Tabatt with you here again on another edition of this Military Minutes, and a very special guest for me today is Mr. Tom Neubauer, who is with the Bay Defense Alliance, also local ERA Neubauer Realty, and a very great interview today because we're going to talk about the problems we have with the military housing now that Tyndall's coming back and everything. Tom, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Well, Jerry, thanks for having me.
And this is something a lot of people are saying. Okay, we're going to rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base. But how are we going to put our people out here when there's nowhere to live or things of this? So what's the Defense Alliance doing? I know you got to report to Washington, D.C. on this.
Yeah, it's very important for the military to know that when their airmen and families come down, there's a place for them to live, that they've got good medical care, there's child care provided for them, that there's all the things that they expect, quality of life things to exist, and they're coming back. But one of the things we're really trying to get our handle on right now is the rate of recovery for housing. It's very difficult to measure, but I'm working closely with Doug Moore. He's with the county, and he's our chamber past chairman and military affairs chair. We're trying to kind of design a matrix to see how quick the housing's coming back, how much is being recovered, and then there's so many new projects in the pipeline.
Yeah. And speaking of that housing, I mean, our local people don't have places to go or anything, and the military housing at Tyndall is wiped out. So you kind of got Washington, you got to report back to these guys. They say, hey, Mr. Neubauer, what's going on?
Yeah, it's important for them to know that we're recovering, and we are. And the military housing on base at Tyndall was outsourced, privatized to another company. And with insurance concerns and the whole recovery process and the mortgage holder, it's slowed down that quite a bit. So there were 833 units there. The end game might be about 580 when they recover the housing out there, and we don't have an exact timeline. So we got to look to the community for housing support, and as a result of that, my goodness, we've had a number of large developers come in, one in particular that's building about 850 apartment units and some other subdivisions that will be up to 1,700 units.
Yeah. But that's going to be a while before they get online.
Yes, that's moving along pretty well, but the slowest part of that process is actually going through the environmental part with the Corps of Engineers and the FDEP and getting those sites approved. So we're keeping tabs on that and trying to move that along as quickly as possible. At the same time, recovery is happening. You know, most of the homes that were damaged or destroyed and not livable no one expected 10 or 11 months to be back in their house. There's still hundreds of homes out there that are months away from being occupied, and some that are marginal as to whether they'll come back at all. But we are seeing them come back pretty quickly, and people are moving back into their home in the local economy and out of some place, maybe on the west end of the beach or out of town. So we're getting the rate of that to try and coincide the recovery with the number of people coming to rebuild Tyndall.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people will be looking at this saying, hey, my husband's or my wife is being assigned to Tyndall and everything. I get here, what am I going to do? Can I stay in Panama City or do I have to go to Eglin? Is there temporary housing that the military is working on?
Well, they've got certainly housing for the young airmen that come in and can live in billeting type quarters. They've recovered quite a bit of that. They lost about 80% of it in the storm. That's going to take care of the younger airmen that don't have families, but those that come and need a place for their family are looking in the local economy, and they're looking across the entire county, including the beach. And that's not the traditional way you wouldn't traverse 40 minutes to work every day. But I think as the major missions come back, we'll bed down the F-35 in 2023. In 2022, the MQ-9, which brings in about 1,600 people. As those things bed down, I think we're going to have very sufficient housing based on the timelines of some of these projects.
You're kind of bringing them in gradually. You're not bringing in 3,000 people tomorrow.
Well, there's a more acute issue, and that is, when you spend $4.5 billion recovering a base, that's a lot of construction, a lot of construction workers. And right now, Tyndall is looking at the need to provide housing for about 3,000 construction people. And most of those will be contractors that can find ways to house their employees, but a lot of them will be contractors that bring their families. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on Bay County housing in general. So our hope is that as the base rebuild completes and more of these contractors start leaving the scene, that housing will become available for the military members that move here.
So the big thing is everybody's got to be patient right now.
That's true.
Now, Tom, you've been doing this many, many years. I've known you many, many years. with this storm and everything, and the military housing crunch, the housing crunch for lower income people, what is this going to do to values? Is it going to skyrocket them as they become available because it's not a lot of units at a time? Are they going to be higher priced than what they normally have been?
Well, certainly supply and demand has a lot to do with the cyclic value proposition people will see. And right now, prices are kind of high, particularly for rentals. We've seen some major escalations strictly because of supply and demand.
Right.
And as more units come back on the market, we're seeing the pressure relieved on the pricing. But what will really be a game changer is as these apartment complexes come online and the new subdivisions come online. We had one local home builder that's talking about building 100 houses a month.
Right.
And as those come online, you'll see more competition. The prices will stabilize and maybe not get to where they were,
Sure.
but they will certainly be much lower than we're seeing now.
And of course now, as we continue to build these houses and things into our area, we have to also consider things such as additional housing for these contractors you were talking about. My question is, Tom, is FEMA going to try and help out in any way, or is FEMA pretty well done with this area?
That's kind of a controversial question, and everybody you ask in the city and the county will give you a different answer. The timeline for FEMA provided housing is pretty difficult. I think we as a community have to pull ourselves together and provide the housing with or without the governmental support. FEMA's been a great help for a lot of people, but that's not what the county's depending on.
One other thing too, as we get these new homes coming online, we all know, those of us that have been in the military, and you've worked with this before, that of course the military member, they get a housing allowance. Now this is built on certain factors figured into the pay scale and all of this for the military. Do you think in this area that they're going to have to raise that basic housing allowance for these young airmen to house their families here?
Well, every couple of years, the Department of Defense goes out and does a study to determine what the BAH should be for various pay grades. And one was done really before the storm, and I think they're looking at it again. That's something that's done very frequently, and as they see that the prices have escalated, there'll be adjustments in people's pay. There's already been some interim support from
Sure.
the Department of Defense for this post-storm recovery. So airmen are getting some benefit from that.
Just cross our fingers and hope everything goes well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Something else we want to talk about before we run out of time. You got a brand new guide here. It's called the Florida Military Friendly Guide. Where's this available and what's in this? Because it looks like a lot of great information.
It's really important for communities across our state to let the military know that, number one, we are military friendly. We have laws that will support military members and families and veterans that move here. We're a defense friendly state. And the Florida Defense Support Task Force, which has been around for about 10 years, created this guide. This is our 4th edition. This one has about 85 legislative initiatives, laws in the state of Florida that focus on things that make it easier for military members in this state. The most important ones right now are things that affect spousal employment, reciprocity of licenses, and the back of the guide will show you that Florida is certainly number one in those areas. If a practicing member of the Florida bar or another bar from another part of the country moves here, they can work under another lawyer, a Florida lawyer, instantly and not have to go through the entire process. Yeah. The same with a number of the disciplines in medical fields.
And there is all kinds of stuff in here. Notice also it deals with education. A lot of our young men and women are not taking advantage of the educational opportunities. I mean, here at Gulf Coast, there's great opportunity advantage there. And you got FSU and you've got Haney. So that's something in here. Who put this out, by the way?
This was put out by Enterprise Florida, and it was put together by the Florida Defense Coalition. It's basically a group of members that are put together called the Florida Defense Support Task Force. I think 4 appointed by the governor, 4 by the Florida Senate President, and 4 by the Speaker of the House. And every year we have new members. So 4 of those are all legislators, and they can take these issues back to the legislature, design the laws, and then get them passed each year. So it's become a pretty good guide, but like you said, communication's the toughest part, letting people know that we've got these capabilities.
Tell me about the reporting you have to do to D.C.
Well, one of the things that's really important for the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff and anybody that sends military members to a base is to make sure that they provide adequate housing and all the things we talked about. So one of the things I promised to do when the Air Force has made such a strong commitment to rebuild Tyndall Air Force Base, and it's been a very good commitment. They've sent us the best engineers, the best subject matter experts to rebuild the base. They need to know when they send somebody here that all the things they would expect are going to be available to them. So I do provide reports back to individuals that are constantly monitoring that situation, and we're getting so much help from across this county to do that.
And that's what's great. And speaking about help across this county, people that are watching this right now, if they want to help out one of these young military families, like with housing or something like that, they want to deal directly with the military and not have to worry about, going through word of mouth. How can our community help these young men and women? Because I know there's a lot of people say, I'd gladly take a family in.
Well, I'm not sure what the best means for that is, but if you just look at campaigns like the Thanks a Million campaign, Bill Kramer helped start that, and it grew so quickly, and probably would be more than $1 million had it not been for the storm. That has been designed strictly to help people with education, continuing education. And most of the military members that come here and the enlisted folks will be part of the Community College of the Air Force. They need to get the basic credits, and Gulf Coast Community College can provide that. This is a state college that has all those benefits for military members, but they need to understand that we have this $1 million fund that will support them and help them with not just their books and tuition, because the government takes care of part of that, but for to fix the transmission on their car or the daycare for their child.
Right. All right, so we got just a couple of minutes left. Let's recap this then. So housing is being taken care of. Now they're building are they already starting to rebuild the on-base housing itself?
No, they're doing some mitigation work, replacing roofs, and it's moving along, but some money was released to help.
And the cities, Tom, that really were the hardest hit over there, Callaway, Parker, and Springfield, are they going to have more difficulty than, say, the beach or the east end or the west end of Panama City itself and over towards Lynn Haven and that? Are those housing areas going to become available first, and then we'll gradually see them get a little bit
I think the whole
closer?
county's moving at about the same speed. And what drives housing a lot of times is the schools. And military members, before they even move to Panama City or Bay County, will look at where they're going to put their children in school, and then they'll decide on their housing. So, making sure the schools recover quickly and we have a direction for them to go is really important, and that's kind of what drives it.
All right, where can people get any more information on this? I know they can call you at ERA Neubauer, but all the other real estate agencies in town, too, Tom, they're pretty well versed in what the military
They
does.
are, and our Association of Realtors, Debbie Ashbrooks, our executive director there, has been working with all the realtors in town to basically rate the quality of the housing that's on the market with red, amber, or green as to the condition that it's in. So we can very quickly see how quickly stuff is coming back. And we're working pretty much as a team to recover this community.
And that team is so great. This community, we've talked about this before, we have banded together. I mean, we're doing a lot of things in this community, Tom, that a lot of people in other communities wouldn't even think about doing, with just our local people banding together.
Oh, absolutely. And this community loves the military. As you know, when you look at it, it's about $2.6 billion impact.
Right.
It's about 31% of our economy.
Yeah.
But more than that, these people are the fiber of our community. And for 77 years, we've been a defense community.
And we're going to continue to be that.
Absolutely.
Tom Neubauer, thank you for coming in today, Bay Defense Alliance, and talking about all this. And we will come back. We will come back.
Great. Thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That'll do it for this edition of your Military Minutes. We'll see you next week with a new visitor. Have a good day.